Athreos, God of Passage, is a 5/4 legendary enchantment creature god from Journey into Nyx. It costs 1, a white, a black, is indestructible, and as long as your devotion to Orzhov is less than 7, Athreos is not a creature. Whenever another creature you own dies, return it to your hand unless target opponent pays 3 life. This is an EDH Commander deck tech for Athreos, God of Passage. So here we have Athreos, God of Passage, one of the enemy-colored gods from Journey into Nyx, which was the 3rd set in the Athreos block. And today I'm going to show you a deck tech featuring Athreos, God of Passage. Before we get into our creatures and spells, let's go over our mana base in this deck. And we're going to start with some basic lands. We're going to have 10 plains. And we're going to have 10 swamps. We got 10 basic plains, 10 basic swamps to begin this deck tech of Athreos, God of Passage. Hello, and I am MTG Burgeoning, and we are deck teching Athreos. Now we're going to get to our non-basic lands, and of course, staple in every single commander deck, Command Tower. Fetid Heath. This is the crop of lands that's going to provide both white and black mana, or white or black. Fetid Heath for our Orzhov filter land. Tainted Field, which gives us a colorless, but gives us a white or a black if we control a swamp. Here's our Isolated Chapel, which is our Orzhov check land. Comes into play tapped unless we have a plains or a swamp. Gives us a white or a black. Our Godless Shrine Shockland, Caves of Koilos, gives us a colorless, or we take a point of damage for a sweet white or a sweet black mana. Shambling Vent enters the battlefield tapped, but acts as a man land, which becomes a 2/3 white and black elemental creature with lifelink until end of turn for a cost of 1 white and a black. And finally, the Temple of Silence, which ETBs tapped, and when it does, we get to scry 1. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 8 dual color lands to go with our 10 plains and our 10 swamps. Up next, we have some special black package mana for any kind of commander EDH deck that's black. If we got a lot of it, well, we got to throw in an Urborg. Generally, I kind of tend to stay away from cards that may help opponents if they're playing black too, and this helps them get access to black mana. However, in this deck, and for a lot of other commander decks that are running black, the benefits are going to outweigh the risks. So Urborg is an inclusion, and if we have Urborg, Cabal Coffers is going to be there too. We're going to tap 2 and tap this and add a black mana to our mana pool for every single swamp we control, which Urborg helps to ramp up to. And we're even going to include Junior in this. Cabal Stronghold. This is Cabal Coffers light version, and we're going to include that too. Next up is the Crypt of Agadim. This ETB's taps for a black, or with 2 of any mana, we can tap this and add a black to our mana pool for each black creature card in our graveyard. And there is the potential to have a lot of them. Phyrexian Tower taps for a colorless, taps to sack a creature to add 2 black mana. And finally, the Bojuka Bog for any potential graveyard shenanigans that are going on with some of our opponents. We put this bad boy into play and exile someone's graveyard. Okay. That is our black package for our mana base, and that leaves us with just 4 other non-basic lands, and these 4 non-basic lands are going to generate colorless mana. Okay, so that's going to be, let's see, this was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, And this was 9. I believe this was 9, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 6, 14. So that gives us 34 lands. And here are the last 4. So this is going to give us a total of 38 lands in the deck. And the first one is a Westvale Abbey. This is where we tap for a colorless, or we tap for 5, pay 1 life, and put a 1/1 white and black human cleric creature token onto the battlefield. We can also tap 5 and sack 5 creatures to transform Westvale Abbey. Let's get a look at her real quick. Westvale Abbey turns into the Profane Prince, a 9/7 flying lifelink indestructible haste that untaps when it transforms. So that is Westvale Abbey. Next up we have is a Field of Ruin. Taps for a colorless, or we can tap 2 and sack it to destroy a non-basic land an opponent controls. Not that there's any powerful non-basic lands in the variant of Commander, right? Temple of the False God gives you 2 colorless if you have at least 5 lands. And lastly, and this is a big part of the deck right here, folks, is our Reliquary Tower. No maximum hand size. The colorless mana is nice, but the no maximum hand size, that's why it's included. And we're going to see why very shortly. This is the mana base. So let's get to the meat part of this deck. And there they are. There's the meaty portion of our deck right here. That's right, we're pairing the Shadowborn Apostles with Athreos, God of Passage. For a black mana, we get a 1/1 that we can tap a black and sack 6 creatures named Shadowborn Apostle to search your library for a demon creature card and put it onto the battlefield. A deck can have any number of cards named Shadowborn Apostle. This supersedes the singleton rule of EDH and Commander because it is printed on the card itself. So yes, this deck in Commander can carry more than 1 copy of Shadowborn Apostle. And as you can see by the thickness that we're about to get down with, there is quite a lot. You got 28 Shadowborn Apostles to pair with Athreos, God of Passage in this Commander EDH deck. There's the meat, folks. Now it's time for the potatoes. Here's the first of our collection of demons that we're trying to pair with these Shadowborn Apostles in their sacrificial ways. Razaketh the Foul-Blooded. We've got an 8/8 for 5 and 3 black. Or for 1 black and 6 Shadowborn Apostles, we get a flying, trampling, legendary demon where you can pay 2 life to sacrifice another creature to search your library for a card and put it into your hand. So you're paying 2 life, a la Vampiric Tutor, and you're putting the card right into your hand, a la Demonic Tutor. Razaketh the Foul-Blooded is our top demon in this deck. Next up on the fetching list is the Runescar Demon. This is Razaketh Light right here, folks. We got 5 and 2 black for a 6/6 flying demon that when it enters the battlefield, we search for our library for a card and put that card into our hand. That's demon number 2. Demon 3 is the Harvester of Souls, a 5/5 Death Toucher from Avacyn Restored that whenever another non-token creature dies, we may draw a card, and we slowly tilt our head towards that stack of Shadowborn Apostles because they're the non-token creatures that are going to be dying. Next up, we have a Bloodgift Demon. So this is a transferable... what is that thing called? Oh, geez, come on. This is a transferable 1 and 2 black at the beginning of your upkeep. Draw a card, lose a life. I can't believe I can't remember the name of it. Blast me in the comments for this. Phyrexian or, oh, that's terrible. Okay, that's awful. So for 3 and 2 black, you're getting a 5/4 flying demon that acts as a transferable. Draw a card, lose a life at the beginning of someone's upkeep. Phyrexian Arena. There we go. Phyrexian Arena. So this is a transferable walking Phyrexian Arena. More often than not, we're going to use it for ourselves. Next up is our Indulgent Tormentor, 3 and 2 black for a 5/3 flying demon at the beginning of my upkeep. Draw a card unless a target opponent sacks a creature or pays 3 life. And our 6th and final demon is Ob Nixilis Unshackled. For 4 and 2 black, you get a 4/4 flying trampler. Whenever an opponent searches his or her library, that player sacrifices a creature and loses 10 life. And whenever another creature dies, we're putting a +1/+1 counter on this guy. And as we tilt our head one more time to look at that stack of sacrificial apostles over there to the left of Athreos, we know that Ob Nixilis is going to get big quick. 6 demons, 28 apostles. Those are the potatoes. Now let's get to the rest of the deck. There are going to be a small subset of periphery cards that are going to help to make the Athreos engine really run smoothly. And when I say smoothly, I mean pretty much interactable, if that's a word, which it probably isn't. So we'll just say it's going to make it pretty damn strong. And the first one that we're going to look at here is the Edgewalker. For 1 white and a black, we get a 2/2 cleric, where cleric spells you play cost a white and black less to play. And if we could see by the creature type of our Shadowborn Apostles, they are human clerics. So with the Edgewalker in play, we are casting a Shadowborn Apostle for free every single time. Next, we have our Zulaport Cutthroat. For 1 and a black, whenever he or another creature we control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. I prefer this much more to the Blood Artist because this hits each opponent. So the Zulaport Cutthroat is also a very, very important inclusion in this deck. Next, we have Original Teysa, the Orzhov Scion. For 1, a white and black, you're getting a 2/3 Human Advisor, where you can sack 3 creatures to exile a target creature from the game. We don't have many white creatures in the deck. However, whenever another black creature we control dies or is put into a graveyard from play, which of course the errata changed for, we put a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying into play. So again, as we tilt the card to that 28 pile stack of apostles over there, Teysa and the creepy dude on her left are grinning just a little bit more, knowing that whenever one of those babies are going to the graveyard, we're going to get a white. We're going to get a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. Original Teysa in the deck. Now, if we're going to say Original Teysa, then we're going to go with Teysa 2.0 because she is going to help us we're going to help cause those triggered abilities to happen one more time. Teysa Karlov, folks, from Ravnica Allegiance. You got 2, a white and a black for a 2/4 Human Advisor. If a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent we control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Creature tokens having Vigilance and Lifelink are not a great deal of concern for us because we have very few outside of what Original Teysa can provide. But the additional death trigger with Athreos up there right at the top, someone going to pay 6 life to have a creature not go to the graveyard? I don't know. So that rounds out the creatures in our Athreos deck tech. Next up, we're going to go to removal, and if white and black can do one thing, boy, oh boy, can they remove some cards, baby. And our first piece of removal, of course, is the Swords to Plowshares. For a white mana, as an instant, we're going to exile a creature, and its controller is going to gain life equal to its power. Our first piece of removal in this deck. Number 2, Despark. From War of the Spark, a white and a black, and we're exiling a permanent with converted mana cost 4 or greater. Anguished Unmaking, exiling a non-land permanent. We're going to lose 3 life, but sometimes that trade-off is well worth it. And then, of course, if you're a fan of the channel, you know that my all-time favorite flavor text is on this card. A cruelty beyond imagining, a pain beyond description. Just awesome. Anguished Unmaking takes us to Utter End. 2, a white and a black. We're going to exile target non-land permanent with the benefit of not losing any life. Merciless Eviction. 4, and a white and a black, and we get to pick one. Exile all artifacts or creatures, enchantments, or planeswalkers. Finale of Eternity. For X and 2 black, we can destroy up to 3 target creatures with toughness X or less. If X is 10 or more, we return all creature cards from our graveyard to the battlefield. Dictate of Erebus. 3 and 2 black with the flash. We flash this baby in, and whenever one of our creature dies, each opponent's going to sack a creature too. And lastly, this isn't exactly removal, but it's definitely a cog in the gears and the plans of our opponents. Blind Obedience with the Extort mechanic. Artifacts and creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. Do not forget to extort this every time we cast an Apostle. Alright, so that is our removal. Next up, we're going to look at some recursion cards and some additional cards that we can use to get our Apostles into play or to benefit from our Apostles leaving play. First card in this pile is Faith's Reward. 3 and a white. It's an instant, and we return to the battlefield all permanent cards in our graveyard that were put from the battlefield this turn. Faith's Reward. Next up is a card all the way back from the days of Urza. With some of the greatest artwork ever done on a card, in my opinion. We have Remembrance. For 3 and a white, we have a global enchantment or a non-aura enchantment. Whenever a non-token creature you control is put into a graveyard, you may search your library for a copy of that creature card. If you do, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your library. With this in play, and when an Apostle goes down, next one comes right down the lane, right back into our hand to come out next time that we can cast them. Remembrance, all the way back from Urza. Next enchantment is Field of Souls for 2 and 2 white again. Whenever a non-token creature is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, or when it dies, put a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying onto the battlefield. Try running both of these cards concurrently with Apostles that are going to the graveyard. You're getting one back. You're getting a 1/1 white spirit creature token. That is unbelievable value. Secret Salvage. This is Kaladesh we're talking about here, folks. For 3 and 2 black as a sorcery, we're exiling a target non-land card from our graveyard, and then we're searching our library for any number of cards with the same name as that card, revealing them and putting them into our hand. This is only going to target our Shadowborn Apostles, because there are no other cards other than the basics, and that says we can't do it non-land. This is only ever going to target the Shadowborn Apostles, and getting them to your hand is huge. Secret Salvage. Our next stop takes us to Cold Snap, and you know what was coming. As soon as we turned over the Apostle stack, you knew that the Thrumming Stone was only a moment in time before we got to it. For 5 of any color, spells you control have Ripple 4. So when we cast an Apostle, or if we cast other spells, but it would be meaningless. When we cast an Apostle, we reveal the top 4 cards of our library, and you may play any of the revealed cards with the same name as the spell without paying their mana costs. Put the rest on the bottom of your library. This will get out an absurd number of Apostles, as long as you're not unlucky enough to hit 4 consecutive cards without seeing an Apostle. Next up, we have Bolas's Citadel from the War of the Spark. Come on, camera, get in the game here. For 3 and 3 black, we have a legendary artifact. We can look at the top card of our library at any time, and we may play the top card of our library, and if we cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its converted mana cost rather than its real mana cost. So we saw that stack of 28 apostles over there. Paying 1 life per black mana is not going to be too bad of a trade-off, particularly in white-black where we are gaining some life. And as an additional bonus, we're going to tap to sacrifice 10 non-land permanents and have each opponent lose 10 life. Now, admittedly, because War of the Spark is a recent set, Bolas's Citadel is more of a recent inclusion within the deck. I don't have a great deal of synergy yet with this card because it hasn't come up in many instances, but I expect big things. So, Bolas's Citadel. And as we come near the end of our recursion theme for our Shadowborn Apostles, we have Rally the Ancestors. For X and 2 white as an instant, we return each creature card with converted mana cost X or less from our graveyard to the battlefield. They get exiled at the beginning of your next upkeep. Then we exile Rally the Ancestors. So unless we have a way in which to get these apostles back into the graveyard or back into our hands or somewhere else, we're going to lose them. So this is a one-trick shot, hopefully to close out the game or to save your hide if someone's sending some creatures your way. This is a one-trick shot, folks. Rally the Ancestors. And then finally, Immortal Servitude. For X and any combination of 3 Orzhov mana as a sorcery, we return each creature card with converted mana cost X from your graveyard to the battlefield. If X is 1, tapping out for 4 mana to return any number of... to return all of your apostles from your graveyard to the battlefield. That is not a bad trade-off. Immortal Servitude. All right, and we are just about done here with our deck tech. We only have a few cards remaining. So let's take a look at some of the other cards that are going to help to make this deck really, really revved up. We save some of the best ones for last. Now with the deck, where we have so many creatures that are 1/1, when we have all of these 1/1 creatures in here that we want to have die, how do we not include what may be one of the greatest equipments ever created, Skull Clamp? For 1 mana and to equip, we're going to give that creature +1/-1, and if we look over, it's a 1/1 creature, and when that creature goes to the graveyard or dies, of course, we're going to draw 2 cards. Skull Clamp is a necessary inclusion. And if we're going to have so many of these creatures dying, if our opponents are willing to pay the life to see that they die, well, let's throw some charge counters on black market. 3 and 2 black for an enchantment. Whenever a creature dies, we're going to put a charge counter on this, and during our at the beginning of our pre-combat main phase, we're going to add a black mana to our mana pool for each charge counter on this. So we're really putting it on our opponents to make some choices here. And of course, the card I could not think of earlier in the video comes back. Phyrexian Arena. How could I forget that? I don't know. Sometimes you can over-prepare and overanalyze, and then the simplest card just slips right through. Phyrexian Arena, of course, during our beginning of our upkeep, we're going to draw a card and lose a life. Pretty standard black card right there. Bantu's Monument is a legendary artifact for 3. Black creature spells we cast cost 1 less to cast. That's not too interesting of a clause for us. What's much more enticing is whenever we cast a creature spell, each opponent's going to lose 1 life and we're going to gain 1 life. So as you can see, with those Shadowborn Apostles, casting 1 and having the Edgewalker in there to reduce that cost, we're casting a free spell, gaining a life, and each opponent is losing a life. And to go with our tutoring demons, we have a Demonic Tutor. Pretty self-explanatory there. Any card from our library right to our hand for 1 and a black. And as an alt win, we've got Debt to the Deathless. X with 2 white and 2 black sorcery. Each opponent's going to lose 2 times X life, and we're going to gain life equal to the life lost this way. That's the 99. And here is number 100, which is, I think, aside from Athreos and aside from the Apostles themselves, this last card, which we purposely saved for the end, at least in my experiences playing with this deck, this card has been the most valuable and the strongest card of the entire deck, and that is, without a doubt, the Phyrexian Arena. For 3, you're going to sack a creature, or 3 to cast the artifact, and then you're going to sack a creature to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. If there is an opponent, and I have lived through this multiple times, if there is an opponent, either through circumstance or just through politicking, whose life is so low, he or she is just unwilling or unwanting to pay the 3 life to return to have Athreos stay in the grave, or to have an Apostle stay in the graveyard because of Athreos' ability, you're going to sack the Apostle to the arena. I'm sorry, you're going to sack the Apostle to the Phyrexian altar for a black mana. The Apostle returns to your hand. You use that black mana to cast him again, and you just keep doing it over and over and over again. Particularly if you have the Edgewalker in play, that's just going to be free mana. You're going to build things up. You're going to drain the resource. You're going to drain the life of all of your opponents. Phyrexian Altar is a must-have card in the Athreos deck. And that is my Athreos / Shadowborn Apostle EDH Commander deck. MTG Burgeoning here, folks. Did you like what you see? Leave us some comments. Let us know, what would you change about this deck? Do you play a deck similar to this? How can I make this deck better? What would you do differently? Let me know in the comment section. Shoot me an email. This is Burgeoning, folks. We are out.